Hello and welcome to Anxiety Hacks. I'm your host, Kate Hudson-Hall, and thank you so much for listening. Now, this is a platform for people to share relatable, uplifting, and also inspiring conversations based on different experiences with anxiety. And each episode, sometimes I'm chatting with people that are going through difficult times with their anxiety and talking about what works for them to help them to sort of be able to calm themselves, and then also to professionals who work with people with anxiety and quite often have had their own struggles with anxiety. So it's fantastic you're here. And before we begin, I just want to tell you about my new book that launched on the 13th of November. So it's just launched and I'm very excited about it. It's called Anxiety Hacks, and there are proven techniques, tools, and tips to calmness in there. So there's many different techniques spread throughout the book, and there's different ways and there's different tools that you can learn. And most of them are very easy to learn. And the ones that aren't quite so easy, like there's a couple of techniques. What I did was I made up a companion course to go with the book. So if you buy the book, you'll get the companion course for free. And within that, there are many, many different videos showing you how to follow each technique. And then there's downloadable tables and other information in there. So it's very exciting because it's now out there. So I'm super excited. So if you wanted to find out about that, if you go to Amazon and put in Anxiety Hacks, and you'll be able to find it. And it'll be in the link below. Now, our fabulous guest today. Oh, we've got an amazing author guest joining us today. Now, her name is Nikki Lampe Nalchajian. Now, Nikki writes to spark conversations and inspire people to seek their own answers. She draws on her personal experience with disordered eating, compulsive behavior, and anxiety to create real characters who reflect the complex reality of being young. Now, her first novel, Starting Tomorrow, is the first in a planned trilogy that follows Mackenzie Stewart through 3 years of mental health ups and downs, friendships, family dynamics, and romance. And Nikki joins us today to discuss this in more detail and to tell us what she's working on now. And so it's fabulous to welcome Nikki.
Thank you, Kate. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us. So Nikki, let's start by talking about your experience with anxiety and the difficulties that you had.
I was thinking about it, and I can remember always having anxiety, but never calling it that. We didn't call it that when I was young. Nobody talked about having anxiety.
Yeah.
It was like, we had a very much, a power through kind of attitude in my family. I mean, get over it. If you're nervous or whatever, you just.
Yeah, I think it was called stress, wasn't it?
Yes.
Or just being a very worried person, somebody that's very
right. Sensitive,
nervous and worried.
Right.
Sensitive.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Right.
And there wasn't the big word anxiety out there. And I always think that the word anxiety, is a huge word, and it can mean so much to everybody. Everybody's different.
I agree. I've been giving it a lot of thought just in preparation for coming to talk to you and thinking about it is even the word anxiety now can make you anxious. So it's like anxiety, but I love, thinking about it in different ways, and just as a plug really for your book. it is fantastic. And I love how anxiety means something different to everybody. The book has so many different ways to approach it. And some are very in your brain, they're very linear, and then some are they're visceral. And so depending, because I find myself when things get too technical, I check out. But then when you talk about more things that are flowy or more meditative, I'm there. And I love how the book, you don't have to resonate with every single one. So just like anxiety, one person's definition of it and another person and how they feel about it. And so I think that talking about it is so helpful, because then you think, oh, I never thought of that feeling as being anxiety. When you listen to this podcast and somebody refers to a particular feeling as anxiety, and you think, oh, I felt that before, but I never labeled it as that. And how interesting, maybe that gives me another way to look at it. If I just was maybe internalizing it like as a personality trait, as we were saying, like, oh, you're just sensitive, or you're just a tense person, or rather than doing that, you can say, oh, that maybe I'm just experiencing anxiety, and it gives you a way to look at it as not an essential part of you, but just a thing that's occurring. And then you can use a tool, you can use a hack, or you can,
Oh, thank you, Nikki.
Yeah, it really is. I would not, I would never, I couldn't say it if I didn't feel it. I just think it's a phenomenal book. So I know you did not invite me on this podcast to wrap up your book, but it is. So everybody, there is something for everyone in it. It's good. It's really good.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So Nikki, tell us about your anxiety, and even though it wasn't called anxiety, you had it from a very young age.
I think so. And I really I resonate more with the word discomfort. Being uncomfortable, particularly in my body. And so that manifested as I was bulimic in high school. And even before that, just always trying to control the size of my body or my hunger, not like, oh, I'm hungry, but I don't want to eat, but I don't, there was just a massive amount of mental anguish over that. So discomfort, anxiety, however, at the time, so in order to control it, that was what I did. I controlled my body. I controlled, if I binged and purged. So I controlled what I ate, and then I got rid of it, which is another, and always a disconnect from that discomfort in my body. So then it just sort of moved on. Then I went to college, and I got therapy. I had a therapist in high school, and I really did develop a better relationship with food and the size of my body. But I didn't really deal with that undercurrent of discomfort of that, what that was. And so then in high school or in college, I drank a lot. And again, I just wanted the discomfort to be gone. So drinking was the perfect way, it was gone.
Yeah, it was your way of coping with it, wasn't it? And detaching yourself.
Exactly. Detaching. And then, and a lot of it being, what will other people think? What do other people think? What will people think of what I say, how I look? Really just worried about the outside. And then, so drinking was like, well, I don't care what anybody thinks. So it was perfect, and then after college, then I wanted to be fit. I'm no longer in this party scene. So then I want to be fit. And then the drinking was kind of getting in the way of that. And so then I started exercising and training for marathons. And I ran 5 marathons in less than 2 years. And, I did triathlons and did all these things. And it was like, I wouldn't drink, but I would say, because I have to do a long run tomorrow. It was all this game. Nobody cares what I'm doing, right? But it's like this game I would play with myself that I needed to explain why now I'm not the partier that I was, or, oh, because now I'm the exerciser. So always, and that was again, a way to just refocus the discomfort, sort of, like I'm anxious about one thing, but now I can channel it and I can focus on, well, I have to run 10 miles today and I have to run this and I have to do this, and just to refocus. So then I did have, after I had children, then I was writing things down, kind of doing this recap of my life. And that was when I had this aha moment. I didn't realize this as I'm saying it, that there was this undercurrent of discomfort, but I didn't realize it. I saw them all as separate things,
Yeah, I don't think
Oh,
we do see it, do we? Maybe
no, I exactly.
Hmm.
So then I had an aha moment. Oh, these are all the same things. These are just symptoms, Oh, this way and this way, this way. The compulsive eating and the disordered eating, and then the drinking, and then the excessive exercise and the control. And so once I really realized what was under it, that was when I've always been interested in reading different things, about learning more about yourself. But that was when I really started seeing things that maybe before I wasn't willing to look at. It was like, oh, I'd always have a story. I am a storyteller. So I'm very good at telling myself stories. I make up all this stuff. I'm like, what? Oh, and right. And then, I just want to share one thing that I thought about, that the biggest thing that I started realizing when I wrote my book was, just being honest. It's like, it's just the most helpful thing. Like, even right now, I feel some anxiety. I'm on a podcast, and just realizing it's like, just admitting it and saying it is just very helpful for me. So, part of the story, being honest about how I'm feeling in a moment. I know it's a little
Absolutely.
off what you asked, but it came to my mind. So.
I love
Oh,
that. But I think, yeah, I think you're right. It's actually bringing yourself back to the here and now and being in the present moment, because,
absolutely.
when you have anxiety, you're off normally worrying about the future and worrying about what's going to happen. And that makes you anxious, or thinking about something that's happened in the past, and that makes you anxious. But if you were to bring yourself back to the here and now, into the present moment, well, that's, there is no anxiety here, because you're right here, grounded.
Yes.
Your
Yes.
mind is.
Yes. It's very true. And even for me, just listening to your words, is a reminder to be present for myself. And I already, from just from talking, I started getting a little anxious, and then I listened to that, come back into the present. I feel better reminding myself, right, being in the present moment, because it is so true. There is no anxiety in the present moment.
No.
It's because, when I'm sitting there talking like that, I'm now thinking about this. Okay, so what is it I'm getting anxious about? What am I getting anxious about is the future. What does this sound like? What are people going to think I sound like? What did I just say? I
Absolutely.
mean,
That's a
just totally
perfect
past
example. Yeah.
and future, right? And I'm getting all, and then you say that, and I go, oh yeah, okay, back to the
It's so
present.
difficult. It takes a long time to slowly start to be aware that that's what your mind is doing. Because we have those
It's
60,000 different thoughts that zip through our mind every day. And some are in the background whispering in our ear, some are in the foreground, some, who knows where they might be hiding.
absolutely, it's so
And
true.
so, starting to be aware of them. And hang on, I feel anxious because I was just thinking about something that happened yesterday that didn't go so well, or whatever.
Right.
So actually bringing yourself back, and one way you could do that is just to tune into your feet and feel them grounded on the floor, feel them in your shoes, and just bringing yourself right back here to the here and now. Or by taking a
Absolutely.
nice big deep breath. Oh
Definitely.
yes, we like nice big deep breaths.
And I often add, I often say I'm safe. I get if that is a common current under when I'm feeling anxious. I think that I look and I think, what is it I feel? I feel untethered, unsafe, I feel exposed. So what you just said, putting my feet on the ground, imagining, I always often imagine a tree or roots or some sort of cord going down, and it's just anchoring. And I say to myself, I'm safe. I'm safe. You're safe in this moment. You're safe.
Oh,
And it helps me so much.
And another thought that you could work with, another way that you could help with your anxiety and to help to bring you back to the present moment, is once you're aware of those difficult thoughts, and I've got this in the book, it's called thought stopping. And so it is about being aware of your negative thoughts that you're having that cause your anxiety. And then when you hear them, it's shouting stop and then telling them to get lost, those thoughts, however you would like to say that. And then, maybe taking a nice deep breath, or like you say, grounding, tuning into your feet, imagining they're the big long roots going all the way down into the ground. And having a phrase that you say to yourself, like I'm safe.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So,
That's
but
great.
using the thought stopping and shouting stop at those negative thoughts and telling them to get lost, the more that you can do that, the more that they will slowly begin to reduce down.
I really like that. Right. Because, it's so easy to identify with the thought. And
get hooked
when
in.
it's there, and then all of a sudden it's you. I am that. There's no separation, that the thought is actually not even real. You just made it up. You just created it.
Yeah. And
you
then you
can
get hooked in.
uncreate it. Right.
And then you, with your professional storytelling, I can just imagine where you end up.
Definitely. All over the place.
But I think we all do that. We all get so carried away. If you're not so aware of those thoughts, you can just easily get sort of engulfed in that difficult story you're telling yourself, and before you know it, you've ended up in some dark hole.
Absolutely.
So it's starting to tune into those thoughts and listen to them.
Yes. And tuning in, that was something, I had been thinking about too. Bringing that awareness and cultivating that, it is a muscle, like remembering to notice. So it's like the more you do it, the better you get. And so in that, for me, meditation every day is very helpful.
Is it?
It is very so, because it's like a practice. It helps you clear your mind. It's not a foreign state to be in a state of just quiet and listening and paying attention. And the more you do it, then the more you notice when something that you notice those thoughts before they take over. So,
Well, there's been so much research done on meditation and mindfulness now.
Yeah,
it's just incredible. The different changes in the brain.
Right.
People that practice regularly meditation and mindfulness. There's huge changes in different parts of the brain.
It is amazing. And I love that. But the biggest you can, if you just do it, but I love that about people. Some people have to have the science, right? They have to see that this part of your brain lights up and this percentage and these statistics. And it's so helpful but in the end, if it doesn't work for you, all the science in the world doesn't matter. So that's why I love meditation, and that there is science, because for many people, they will not try it if there is no science. If the science gets you there, but then you see how you feel. I mean, I think it would be pretty hard to do a mindfulness or meditation, they work together, and not have an effect. I mean, a positive. You can feel it.
Well, one of the big changes in the research they found in the brain is that the amygdala, which is the part of the brain that causes the fight or flight. It's the anxious part of the brain.
Right.
That part of the brain had shrunk, because they've done this so many times, and they've taken a group of people and they've done MRI scans on their brains before they've actually started to practice. Well, this is for mindfulness. And then they've done an 8-week mindfulness course. And then they've done the brain scan again afterwards. And what they found was there was lots of different changes, but one of them was that the actual amygdala, which is the main part of the brain that controls your anxiety, that part had shrunk.
Isn't
You
that
think,
amazing?
they've done this so many times, this research, and every time it shows that this part of the brain is shrunk, so you'd be less anxious if you practice meditation or mindfulness.
Right. It's true.
Yeah. So anyway, so let's go back to your anxiety. So let's think now. So meditation helped you. So what else helped you with your anxiety?
I was also thinking hand in hand with meditation, yoga, a daily yoga practice, really, even if it's 5 minutes, that connection to your body or to my body. And they kind of, you do yoga so that you can sit and meditate.
Yes.
That was the origination of it. But I think that origination, or was origination even a word? Origin of yoga, but
Origin
I
don't know.
It's that feeling, that connection, and even 5 minutes, because you all of a sudden you just can in 1 minute, the amount you can connect to your body, even if you're sitting quietly and you're in meditation, or if you're moving mindfully in yoga. It's all it takes. And then it brings your focus back to the present. And that brings us back to what we were saying. There is no anxiety in the present. And then it just stays with you. And so it's the daily for me that I think is just really impactful, because noticing how you are and noticing on a day-to-day basis, we change every single day. So then one day when you're just spinning out for no reason, you've checked in with yourself every day, and you notice it. And then you also remember, oh, like maybe about a month ago, I felt exactly like this, or, oh, that's really, you start to notice patterns, and that there isn't some major thing wrong. You just go, oh, because we're like, we change every day. We're different. And then to accept that, right? So that yoga with that, and we talked about grounding and
anxiety as a gift.
Oh yes, that's what the perspective on anxiety. I think we kind of touched on that in the beginning, how everybody, the word means something to everybody. It's different. But the way I like to look at it when I feel anxious, instead of looking at it like I have a problem, I think, oh, like, okay, it's a gift. It's kind of overly, some people will like punch you in the face if you say that to them. Do not tell me this is a gift. But what I mean is, there is that potential for looking at it like, what is this telling me? And I always find that it may be telling me, it's rarely something as simple as, oh, I'm overreacting. There's really a message under that discomfort, and looking at it, for me, it often is a fear. And then I look at the fear, I tell myself I'm safe. And then I look at it and sit with it and say, okay, the way I look at it is, I brought this to myself. Because if you didn't feel uncomfortable, then you would be totally unconscious of this, that there's something amiss. And the fact that you're conscious of it, even if it's in the form of anxiety, shows that you're ready to learn something. You're ready to grow. You're ready.
So Nikki, what I say to my clients is, so sometimes is, if your anxiety had a voice, what would it be trying to tell you?
Yes, I love
So
that.
it's the same, the same sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I like that way of phrasing it because sometimes it's easier to think of it as a separate entity, you
Yeah.
know, and like, okay, what is it? What is it you're telling me?
Yeah.
In the end, I always, it's you, it's me, it's all, and I think that, so then, right, that is really helpful. And then that kind of comes down to talking about, that reminds me of, think about it as a separate entity or thinking about it as yourself trying to call your attention to something, is you get closer to that feeling that there isn't separation. So for me, it often leads to the next thing, like less separation even between people, because the anxiety always comes from, for me, an external perception or worrying about something external. And so the closer I get to that feeling that we're all part of the same thing and that we're all really the same thing, then it goes away, because you can, there's that feeling of camaraderie instead of
Yeah. Yeah.
like otherness, like more of a, so same
Yeah.
with anxiety, the more you can see it as your friend, and the more everything kind of becomes your ally. It's your
Yeah.
ally.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not your enemy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I like that. It's
So,
helpful.
it is very helpful, and I think people should practice that and
Yeah.
give that a go.
I agree.
Now, so tell me about where you are in your authorhood.
Authorhood.
Authorhood. That's a
um
word, isn't it?
let's see. Well, my book's starting tomorrow. So this is my book. And I published this at the end of 2020. And it is about a 16-year-old girl. It's her journal, and she is struggling with bulimia, and it's her journey. And so she's 16. And then I am just about done. I plan to publish the second book, which is the sequel. So she's 17 in the next one. It's called Starting Fresh, and that's coming out in February. Ooh, and right now I just found my narrator for Starting Tomorrow. So the audiobook is going to be
Oh
coming
my
out.
gosh,
Oh,
that's so exciting.
I'm very excited. It's read by a young voice. I thought that was very important to have the voice match the book. So.
Yeah. And so when do you think the audiobook will be released, roughly?
Mid-December. That
So
is,
mid-December.
yes. But being my first venture on an audiobook, we shall see. One
Yeah.
never knows. But it's always good to plan, adjust, plan, adjust. But that's the
Oh,
plan.
absolutely, absolutely. Oh gosh, Nikki. Oh, thank you so much. That
Thank
really
you.
is. So how can people find you?
Let's see. Well, on Amazon, my book is on Amazon starting tomorrow again. And
Starting tomorrow.
um,
Holding up the book there.
and then I am on Twitter, and it's Nikki Nal, Nikkinal. So that's pretty much my handle on most things: Twitter and Instagram, Facebook. I'm Nikki Lampe Nalchajian. You could see it. Can you see it in my Zoom thing? It's not an easy one, but you could go find my book on Amazon and then look at my name.
But
Facebook is always giving me fits, but so who knows? Yes.
all the links will be below the show notes, in the show notes
Okay.
anyway. So people
Okay.
can come and find you there. But or you just put starting tomorrow into Amazon and they'll be able to find you there.
Yes. Oh, and my website is also nikkinow.com. One little interesting bit
Oh,
info is that, so NAL is just is short, for Nalchajian, my last name, my married last name. But interestingly, the reason I really love it is my initials when I was born. I'm Nicole Ann Lampe, which is NAL. So I
ah.
just love that coincidence, and that's why I use Nikki
Oh, I
now.
see. I love that.
So yeah, just a tidbit, little trivia. So that's where you can
Love it.
find me. Yes.
I love it. Oh gosh. So Nikki, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kate. This was
And
so much fun.
and talking to us about what's helped you with your anxiety, because we all need to to talk about it and what works for us, what doesn't work for us. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Happy to be here. Thank you so much. I feel better.
Good.
My anxiety is, I'm very peaceful. Thank you.
I love it. So, well, that's all for today's episode of Anxiety Hacks. And thank you to everybody for listening. And before we go, make sure you subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes or iPlayer or wherever you listen to it. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll speak to you in the next episode.